Good morning, everyone. This is Sir Jude, and this is the reviewer for your upcoming third quarter examination on Friday. Kaya we will be using your mastery test, which was done this Tuesday, no? Para hindi nyo makalimutan or ma-refreshan kayo sa third quarter lessons natin. Okay? So let's start with part 1, nervous system, no? Uh, the first half, let's trace the divisions of the nervous system involved in each scenario. So, start with number 1. Our anuses close when we defecate. That's an involuntary action. Kaya we will start with autonomic. And because the anuses relaxes upon defecation, no, therefore that's under parasympathetic nervous system. Number 2, our glossopharyngeal nerve linked to our brain aids when our tongues push our food down the esophagus. So swallowing, once we push down our food down the esophagus, that's a voluntary action. Kaya we will start with somatic. And because the glossopharyngeal nerve is linked to our brain, then therefore it is controlled by the cranial nervous system. Number 3, our adrenal glands secrete adrenaline, causing the adrenaline rush when we experience highly emotional and physically charged events. So our adrenaline rush is involuntary. Therefore, we will start again with autonomic. But since that is activated and that will be more efficient or advantageous when we are performing active or dynamic functions, then therefore, sympathetic nervous system is at play. And lastly, the largest nerve in the human body, the sciatic nerve connected to our spine, controls hamstring movements such as walking, running, or bending the knee. So these hamstring movements are voluntary, kaya we will start with somatic. Okay? And because sciatic nerve is connected to our spine, so therefore, we have the spinal nervous system. All right? So let's move on to the second half of part 1. Identify the brain lobe applied in each scenario. So we have 4. We have frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. Number 5, a teacher can remember lucid details of our everyday life that's related to memory, and memory is controlled by temporal lobe. Number 6, a cyclist skillfully maneuvers his body and his bicycle in his stunts. So this activity has something to do with our motor skills, kaya frontal lobe. Number 7, the pupils in our eyes adjust their sizes whenever we enter non-illuminated environments. So this has something to do with vision, kaya we have occipital. And number 8, animals have heightened instincts and superlative reflexes about their surroundings, predators, and prey. This is connected to spatial awareness, being extremely focused and at the same time observant of your surroundings. Kaya parietal lobe. Okay, so that's 1 down and 5 more to go. Part 2, reproductive system, the menstrual cycle, and the calendar method. So even though we discuss male reproductive system, the bulk of this portion is almost solely dedicated to the female reproductive system. Okay, so number 9, what does FSH stand for? This is follicle stimulating hormone. While for number 10, LH, that's luteinizing hormone. So FSH, by the way, is responsible for the production of sex cells, sperm cell for males and egg cell for females, while the luteinizing hormone LH is responsible for the sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Next, the menstrual cycle has four phases: follicular, ovulation, luteal, and menstrual. Determine which phase each woman experiences. Start with 11. Sydney expels a white discharge, marking the release of her egg cell. And whenever egg cell is released, that process is called ovulation. 12. Samantha does not expect to be pregnant because she has not yet ovulated, meaning this woman, Samantha hasn't released her egg cell yet. Therefore, she doesn't have any risk of being pregnant. That's why it's follicular. Because follicular is called the pre-egg release, no? Before the egg cell is released. Number 13, Tara encounters uterine bleeding and painful abdominal cramps for 3 days. So, this is very obvious, kaya menstrual. And 14, Gail feels bloated or puffy not because of overeating, but due to her uterus reaching its maximum thickness. That's because at this point, her uterus is preparing for the arrival of baby, no? Kaya it's the TL phase. Okay? Ayan. So, let's have the calendar method. A married couple wishes to have a baby sometime soon. The wife, who has irregular menstruation, experiences the first day of her February menstrual cycle on the first Tuesday. That happens to be February 3. And she will menstruate expectedly until February 9, so which covers 7 days. Number 15. When will the wife's ovulation day be if the ovulation day is the 14th day from the first day of the current menstrual cycle? So, ang shortcut natin dito is reduce skip counting by 7. And because February 9 already falls under day 7, then therefore, February 16 will serve as her ovulation day. Ayan. Okay? And this next portion of the calendar method is marami sa inyo hindi nakakuha or hindi nakagets tong part na to, kaya I will elaborate on this further, ha? So, fertile days or unsafe sex are the days when a married woman can get pregnant. Determine the fertile days. So, for the first fertile day, you subtract the shortest cycle minus 18 days. The last fertile day, you subtract longest cycle to 11 days. And all days between the first and the last fertile days are also fertile days. Number 16, when will the wife's first fertile day be if her shortest cycle is 26 days? So I didn't ask you to solve during the time of mastery test, but here I will perform it for you. Um, so for her first fertile day, no? So use the formula shortest cycle, which is 26 days, minus 18 days. That will give you the 8th day. And because February 9th is already day 7, then therefore February 10 will be the 8th day. By the way, if masyado kayo nabibilisan with the way I count the number of days, then you may have the option of counting one by one. All right? Number 17, when will the wife's last fertile day be if her longest cycle is 32 days? So we use the second formula. Oh, second fertile day. So we have 32 days minus 11 days, which correspond to the 21st day. So if Feb 9 is day 7, Feb 16 is, what do you call this? Day 14. Kaya ito yung ovulation day. Tapos Feb 10 is the first fertile day. Yan. So therefore, day 21 or the 21st day will fall under February 23. 18. When is your first safe sex day, discounting the menstrual days? So remember that for February 10 until February 23, uh, when she has sex in those days, she's more likely to get pregnant. So therefore, her official first safe sex day will happen after the last fertile day. And because the last fertile day is February 23, therefore, her first safe sex day is on February 24. Okay, so this is part two for you. Two down, four to go. Part three, nucleic acids and central dogma of life. Number 19. If a DNA molecule has 15% guanine, how many percent are cytosine, adenine, thymine, and uracil? Okay. Because the given is for 15% guanine, and therefore, let's find for cytosine, adenine, and, thymine, and uracil. So, guanine's partner is cytosine, therefore cytosine will have 15% as well. And because cytosine and guanine have a combined percentage of 30%, therefore the remaining 70% will now be shared between adenine and thymine. So 70% divided by 2, that's 35%. And remember, uracil doesn't have any thymine. A DNA molecule doesn't have any thymine nucleotides. Therefore, uracil is automatically 0%. Okay, so let's proceed to central dogma of life. Uh, I ask you to choose between A, B, C, D in answering numbers 22, 22. Now, what is the replicated DNA when the parent DNA, PGG, AGA, CCG, GAA undergoes DNA replication? In DNA replication, we always use GCAT. No? Guanine is always paired with cytosine, vice versa. Adenine is always paired with thymine, vice versa. So to get the replicated DNA, no, TGG's partner is ACC, AGA's partner is TCT, CCG's partner is GGC, and GAA's partner is CTT. So this is letter A. Yan. For 21, what will be the codons of the mRNA strand B when the replicated DNA in 20 undergoes RNA transcription? So this time, for RNA transcription, we will now be using another acronym, GCAL. So guanine is still paired with cytosine, vice versa, while this time adenine will now be paired with uracil. So ACC's partner is now UGG. TCT's pairs are now AGA. Then GGC's partner is CCG. And CDT's partner is now GAA. So therefore, the answer to 21 is letter C. And lastly, what anticodons will attach to the codons of the mRNA when the mRNA in 21 undergoes protein translation? So just like 21, we will be using GCAL again for the anticodons. So UGG's partner is ACC, AGA's partner is UCU, CCG's partner is GGC, and GAA's partner is CUU, giving us letter D. Okay. Next, using the codon chart below, what will be the amino acid sequence B based on the codons from number 21? Most of the groups base their answers on number 22 when I'm asking you to base your answer from number 21. Okay, so let me use the annotation. I'd like to start with UGG. Ayan. So UGG, so use the first letter U, second letter G, and then third letter G. When you connect them together, you have tryptophan. Okay, next, AGA. For AGA, first letter is A, second letter is G, and third letter is A, giving you arginine. Right? For CCG, first letter is C, second letter is C again, and the final letter is letter G. So when you connect them together, you have proline. And finally, we have GAA. So first letter is G, second letter is A, and last letter is A, giving us glutamate. Okay, the sequence of our amino acids will be tryptophan first, corresponding to UGG, followed by arginine, corresponding to AGA, then proline, corresponding to CCG, and finally glutamate, corresponding to GAA. Part 4, mutation. Let's start with first half. Down syndrome is a genetic disorder caused by an extra copy of a certain chromosome. Individuals with Down syndrome may have a flat facial profile, upward slanting eyes, a short neck, and a small head. They may also experience developmental delays, including slower speech and motor skills development. Below is a choreograph of a human with Down syndrome. Number 24, what number is the mutated chromosome? Usually, to find out the mutated chromosome, it must exceed a pair. So there must be more than two chromosomes or less than two chromosomes. Because as we know, the normal designation for chromosomes that each number must have a pair or two chromosomes. So in this case, the mutated chromosome is number 21 or the 21st because has three chromosomes exceeding the numbered pair. Okay? Number 25 is the mutated chromosome somatic or gametic. Since the first 22 pairs of chromosomes or the first 44 chromosomes are considered body, we will classify the mutated chromosome as somatic. Okay? So remember, somatic chromosomes are body chromosomes, while gametic chromosomes are sex chromosomes. And gametic chromosomes are only applicable for chromosome number 23. Okay? Number 26 is the individual with Down syndrome, male or female. To check the gender of the patient or the individual, you must look at the 23rd chromosome. And the 23rd chromosome happens to be this portion. So you might be wondering, sir, why is the 23rd chromosome not a mutated chromosome? After all, there is no Y. Because remember, for the genders, for XX or double X, you have females. And for XY, we have the males. Okay? So for XX, therefore, normal lang dun sa taong yun na walang Y chromosome talaga kasi babae. And as it happens, the patient here experiencing Down chromosome is a female. Okay? 27 is the mutation heritable or not. So very simple. If it is a body or somatic chromosome, it's not heritable, meaning you cannot pass it to the next generation or to your offspring. While if it is gametic, it is considered heritable because it's sexually transmitted. Okay? Second half of part 4, identify the type of gene mutation, whether it's frameshift, missense, nonsense, and silent in each mutated amino acid sequence. To find out, let's compare each mutated amino acid sequence to the original amino acid sequence. In the original amino acid sequence, you have the following amino acids. You have valine, threonine, histidine, tryptophan, and phenylalanine. Looking at number 28, in the first mutated amino acid sequence, you notice that valine is color red, meaning there's a certain mutation that happened there, but the rest of you can also notice that even though there's a mutation in number 28, the amino acid sequence is still the same as the original amino acid sequence. Therefore, number 28 is classified as a silent mutation, meaning the original amino acid sequence is retained. There's only a mutation in the nucleotides. For 29, in the third amino acid, histidine is now changed to glutamine. If there's only one amino acid altered or modified, you have a missense type of mutation. For number 30, you now notice that after histidine, there are no longer amino acids succeeding it. So therefore, the entire protein translation was discontinued or prematurely ended. Therefore, this is nonsense mutation. This is the out of all the types of gene mutation, this is the easiest to determine or to pinpoint because of the presence of the stop codon. And last, for number 31, you notice that the entire amino acid sequence is now altered or modified. Instead of valine, you now have arginine, threonine, you now have tyrosine, histidine, you now have proline, tryptophan, altered to leucine, and now phenylalanine, now transmitted to valine. If the entire amino acid sequence was now altered, you now have a frameshift mutation. Okay, so this is how we identify the type of mutation by comparing the original amino acid sequence to the mutated amino acid sequences. All right, let's proceed to part 5. Okay. Evolution. First half, let's compare the table. A lizard's forelimb digs, a bird's wing flies, a human arm holds, and a whale's flipper swims. They have similar bone structures. On the other hand, a whale's flipper, a turtle's front leg, a fish's fin, and a penguin's wing swim even though they have different bone structures. So let's identify if these quartet of body structures are considered homologous or analogous. For 32, we will classify these four as homologous because they have similar bone structures but they perform different functions. While on 35, we will classify this quartet of structures as analogous because they have different bone structures, but at the same time, they perform the same function, which is swimming. For ancestors, we believe that this quartet of organisms originated with a common ancestor. Kasi they have similar bone structures eh. And you might be wondering paano nag-evolve, no? Maybe because of the environmental factors, no? So probably they originated from from the same ancestor, but yung ancestor na yun is nag-travel to different places. So probably kung aquatic yan, natutong lumangoy. Then kung nasa land siya, natuto siyang maglakad or magdig. Then somewhere high up there, natuto siyang mag-fly. Okay? Now, for the other one is, for the other quartet of structures, we have multiple ancestors. Because these four organisms, for the whale, turtle, fish, and penguin, they have different bone structures. So we started from different or multiple ancestors. But these four, no, because all of these four primarily live in aquatic environment, no, then therefore natuto silang lumangoy or lalong-lalo lang sa body part na yan. Okay? Now, is the evolution convergent or divergent? For homologous structures, we follow divergent evolution. because it started with a common ancestor and you ended up with organisms performing different functions. While for analogous structures, they follow convergent evolution because it start with multiple ancestors and you end up with organisms performing the same function. Kaya convergent. All right? So the first half of evolution is focused on evidences of evolution. Let's now proceed to theories of evolution. So determine the theories of evolution: acquired traits, adaptation, competition, natural selection, need, overproduction, use and disuse, and variation, employed by Jean-Baptiste Lamarck and Charles Darwin to explain the domination of long-trunked elephants nowadays. Model number one. Long ago, short and long-trunked elephants coexisted. Because the opposing species of elephants coexisted, therefore we have variation as our first model. For the second statement, long-trunked elephants could easily reach food. They were the ones who can easily adapt to their environment. Therefore, for number 39, that theory is adaptation. Number 40, when resources become scarce, short and long-trunked elephants fought. So this is competition because there is now struggle for probably resources or further existence. Okay? For number 41, long-trunked elephants won. They dominated and thrived. So this is natural selection because they're the ones wherein their physical they have a physical advantage to their environment, no? Especially because elephants prefer sometimes vegetables, so, or rather tree branches or even the grasses, no? They can reach it if their trunks are short. They have to reach it using their long trunks. Okay? So for evolution model number 2, prehistoric elephants had short trunks and then they stretch their trunks to reach their food. There are two theories here. So from the phrase they stretch their trunks, they needed, no? Kaya we start with theory of, with use and disuse pala. Yan. So they frequently use their trunks to reach their food. So that's theory also of need because they need to survive. They need their body to be replenished with nutrients in order to survive. And lastly, elephants have had long trunks since then, no? So naipasa yung trait of having long trunks to the next generation. So this is acquired traits. Now, for number 44, is the first evolution model Lamarckian or Darwinian? For the first evolution model, we have variation, adaptation, competition, and natural selection. All of these theories belong to Charles Darwin. Is the second evolution model Lamarckian or Darwinian? So we have use and disuse, need and acquired traits, all of which were founded by Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, so Lamarckian. Now, according to Darwin, how do weak organisms manage to prevent extinction despite weak offense and defense against their predators? I'm talking about animals like rabbits or insects or even fishes, no? Normally, when you have a one-on-one fight with them against other organisms, normally they lose because they have weak offense and defense. But they are not yet extinct. So there must be something within them that allow them to survive for a long or for their species to survive and thrive regardless of their weak offense and defense. And that is called overproduction. Okay? Yeah. So that's evolution for you. Let's now proceed with the final part of the mastery test, biodiversity and population. Let's start with biodiversity first on the left. Let's compare the species richness, abundance, and evenness of mushroom communities A and B. When you say species richness, it refers to how many species of mushroom are present in each community. So to determine the species richness, all you have to do is just look at the shape or the case of these examples, it is easily distinguished by their colors. So how many colors do you see? How many colors do you see in each community? So both communities naman have yellow, purple, orange, and brown. So therefore, the correct answer for species richness is 4. For species abundance, this is the time that we count the total number of organisms regardless of their species. Okay? So for community A, you have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And for community B, you also have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So the answer is 12. Now, for species evenness, write the ratio of each number of mushroom species per color. For community A, there are 3 yellow mushrooms, 3 purple mushrooms, 3 orange mushrooms, and 3 brown mushrooms. So in math, no, we express our answers in lowest term. So we have 1 is to 1 is to 1 is to 1. You have equal number of mushroom species in that community. While for community B, you have yellow mushrooms dominating the community with 9, and the rest of the colors are represented only with 1 each. So 9 is to 1 is to 1 is to 1. So we expect that community A has a higher species evenness compared to community B because each mushroom species have the same number. Nobody is dominating over the other species. Okay. 51. Should both communities be damaged by the deforestation with only 4 mushroom organisms remaining, we have no idea what colors, which community will probably have more difficult time undergoing rehabilitation and why. So, in this case, we expect community B to have a harder time or having more difficult time undergoing rehabilitation because they have that tendency. Again, we don't know which species remain or how many which color of mushrooms remain. All we know is that apat lang ang natira. And because in community B, it's the yellow mushrooms who are dominating compared to other colors. So, there is a higher probability na yung orange, yung tinggi isang orange, brown, tsaka purple mushroom, baka nasira sila during deforestation. So, baka puro yellow mushroom na lang ang matira at possibly ma-rehabilitate. So, the answer is community B because it has a lesser species evenness compared to community A. Alright? Now, dito na tayo sa population. Let's compare the population growth of 2 organisms. Radishes, which are vegetables, and fruit flies, which are insects. 52. Does the blue curve manifest an exponential or a logistic growth? For the blue curve, because it is shaped like letter J, as you can see from the curve, no, it only takes 40 days for it to reach more than 1,200. So if you see a curve that resembles letter J, that is an example of an exponential growth. Okay? Why is it exponential? Because of the faster reproduction, allowing for a J-shaped curve. On the other hand, so obviously, no, dun sa other curve, no, that manifests a logistic growth. Because kung titingnan natin, no, it took 100 days and only 1,000 organisms ang population size. Hindi kagaya kanina sa blue curve, no, it took between 40 to 60 days para ma-reach ang more than 1,200, no? So, why is it logistic? You have a slower reproduction and symbolized by the S-curve. Now, which curve color represents the population growth of radishes? So if we have radishes versus fruit flies, we expect that vegetables will take probably a longer amount of time to reproduce, no? Or to harvest, rather. So therefore, If radishes take slower time, therefore we expect the color curve of radishes to be red. While for fruit flies, we expect it to be color blue. Now, based on your answer in number 54, how many radishes were harvested after 60 days? So we focus on 54, we focus on radishes, we focus on the red curve. So after 60 days, which is on the x-axis, no? So trace that line upward, we can see that the population size of radishes at that point is 800. Yan. Number 57, based on your answer in number 55, at what time or day did fruit flies reach 600 organisms? No? So for 600, this time organisms tayo or sa population size, magsa-start tayo with the y-axis. Extend that point to the right until you reach the curve. And then baba tayo to x-axis. So for 600 fruit flies reproduced, it took 40 days. And finally, at what exact day did the radish and fruit fly populations, teka lang, reach equal population size aside from day 0? So, sinasabi lang po dito is, kailan po nagtagpo or nagkaroon ng equal bilang ang fruit flies at saka radishes aside from 0? Kasi 0 days, syempre, sabay pa silang nag-start from nothing. Wala pa nabubuong organisms at all. So aside from the 0th day, they also coincided at the 20th day. So day 20. Yan. Okay, so this is almost the entirety of third quarter. You may check my previous videos kung gusto nyo balikan yung mga lessons na uh, nalimutan nyo na, especially pinag-aaralan natin no November to December. And you may also, well, since review time naman na, no, you may, ang hassle kasi kung babalikan pa literally from the start. So I suggest na aside from viewing this video, dahil ito yung mastery test ninyo, no, I also suggest na focus na lang kayo doon sa mga topics na nahirapan kayo or balik-balikan nyo siya, aral-aralin nyo siya, and then para bukas, mas confident na kayong sagutan ang third quarter examination. Okay? And after reviewing my subject and the two other subjects as well, don't forget to have a rest. Yan. Marami pong salamat and see you tomorrow. Goodbye and good luck.